여기 세파요 각격 나스kum나 세미나 배고 에페 빅 스쿼트가 겸 가기 에페게 스크시아탄 소메기 베 그때마히스크 아와사카야스 사스포타 히스게가 에와원 하체게 뭐 티테 에나 본마츠스키스토 뭔가쯤스코이츠게 Well, good morning, everybody. I said good morning in our language. Mio kik sepayao. That's how we say it. Getting some feedback. But I thank you for taking the time to be here once again. I don't know if some of you were here this morning. I'm going to share a little bit about the same thing, but just I changed a few things. You're lucky this morning because this morning I wasn't really telling everything. But I think the music alone and the words that they sang really ministered to me this morning, because in order for us to reconcile with anyone, we have to reconcile with God. And then in order for us to get to the truth, well, let's follow the truth and understand what the Word says, the Scripture says, in order that we can have success in talking to individuals. They'll see it in our lives, right? We don't have to really show them the Bible sometimes, and you get to that. But the biggest thing is that they have to see God in us. And it's just so important. It's just nice to see Nadine and Josh, and they're a great help to us, Pastor Solo, and back home in Muscatine. And in this past week, I've probably seen the Seventh-day Adventist Church at my house more than I have but we had some great times at my place on Tuesday. They had photographers, videographers, and so I believe there was a lady that came from Maryland. Oh, man, just to come and visit. So it's a privilege, certainly. I never question or never underestimate the power of God, because it's time for certain things to be revealed and then discussed. And one thing for sure, I'm getting better at public speaking, because you guys gave me an opportunity to do that quite a bit. But like I said, I've been all over the world, and as far as I'm an honorary Kenyan, you know, that's a funny story. Well, I shouldn't say it's funny, but it was first ever First Nations to minister in the streets in the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. And it was certainly, like I said, and so the tribes made me an honorary Kenyan. So I said, when you ever come back here, we'll give you a name. It's Mawendo. I don't know if anybody sees loved one. So I said, anytime you come to land at the Nairobi airport, there'll be always somebody waiting there for you. The last time I went, I walked right by the guy. I forgot the spelling of that thing, and I kept texting those guys, there's nobody here. I thought you guys said, he's there. And they said, look for your name. I didn't look for the Kenyan name. Here he was, he was the first one there, just had a big smile, and I waved at him, and I walked right by him the first time. So, you know, we like I said, it's certainly, like I said, I'm always privileged to talk about ministry, talk about God, but this time we're talking about truth and reconciliation. Like the kids just answered certain things that make us think. So they're capturing things, but for most of us adults, we need to catch up to the little kids, because they just swallow up everything like a sponge, and for us, we just, I don't know, you know, and we tend to lose opportunities and miss those opportunities when we don't react. We need to be more proactive. And many times in our countries, we just wait for something terrible to happen. Okay, we need to help these people, right? Instead, well, let's look for opportunities. And then we need to take those opportunities that are necessary for us to step in, because the mission field's there. I always tell the congregation at our church, I as a pastor and you as the congregation, especially the congregation, you have more opportunities than I have to meet and greet people every day. What's going on? and because people come to me and then they ask, well, you guys are a church, well, why don't you display this? Right? And so I get it all the time. And now, even as a chief, the buck stops here. My council blame me. Well, talk to the chief. They're at the same meeting, right? So we have to. So sometimes but the good thing about my leadership as a chief of Ermineskin, and by the way, for those of you that weren't here this morning, today is my last official day as chief of Ermineskin. So I'm sad leaving. But at the same time, it's like 3-year terms. I did a few terms, and it's a 3-year headache that doesn't go away. So hopefully by tomorrow when I wake up, it's, the only reason why I say that, it's not because things are troubling back home. It's just that you care for people. I wake up every day, what can I do to help my people? What can I do to help my church? Not my church, but the church. But it's so, so important when you're so into something. You put all your heart and effort into it and your energy, and sometimes you get drained. There's nothing, like 40 years in the ministry. This year I took a break. I didn't even know what a holiday was, right? Because you just appreciate your pastor. That's one thing we have to do, appreciate your pastor, because many people don't realize what goes on. Well, it's the power on today. We have all these seasons, right? Well, we have heat today, right? We have a flood and you have to get around and scramble. I'm so thankful my brothers, and they're all in the trades, and my brother's a plumber, so there's times when they're downstairs, and some days he just pulls up with his tractor and he cuts the lawn, and that's something that we all take for granted. We come here, sit, it's nice to be here, but in the meantime, the pastors, we have a program to run, right? Where's the musicians? They're not here, right? There's all these things these variables that we have to think about and consider. But like I said, it's so and so important that we, every once in a while, thank your pastor. Appreciate your pastor and the pastor's wives and everyone that helps out in the church. But today we're talking about truth and reconciliation. I said that this morning, is that this September is a hard month for First Nations, because September was when the kids and the children the authorities came in, grabbed the kids and took them away, and some never came home. So this is a real hard and depressing month for some of our own people. Because even my daughter, she works in a Roman Catholic school system, and her role is to be a lead in the Indigenous side of it, and making sure that people know about our First Nations culture and histories, but also how teaching should be done, and to acknowledge that our language is important, and our traditions and practices are looked at in a way of respect. So we often think about that. So today, I just felt a release just when this morning was heavy. Now I felt a release. I think your church is getting it. And really, just every once in a while put your hand by your heart and just say, I sense something's going to take place. And I want to be an example. I want to be a role model, but also I want to be part of what's going on here. So when you get home today, those of you that are parents, or those of you that have parents, today is a good time as we enter the last day of September. Go and hug them. That's so, so important. Be grateful for your children, your parents, grandparents, because they all went through something in their lives. So I think today is like I said, as difficult as it is, I'm grateful because I get to tell a story. I get to tell you some truths, share about some truths. And so now as I venture into something different, I got prayer in North Dakota a couple of weeks ago when I was visiting, and the pastor came up to me, and I didn't know him. He just came up, he said, come up here. He said, new beginnings. I see you moving somewhere in a direction where you're going to address more and more people today, right? Just big or small. I even as a pastor, if there's just a handful of people, because sometimes weather plays a role, right? I can preach to 3 people. It doesn't matter. We have to be instant, in season, out of season. And God is truly blessed us that way. He gives us examples that no matter how big or great a crowd is, I am with you. And I always think about that. So it's a difficult month. So we move forward, and I was grateful for the visitors I had on Tuesday, and all this since I've been transitioning to, I guess, away from politics. Not totally. The Treaty 6 chiefs and the office in Edmonton, because I was a spokesperson for 17 other First Nations, and across Canada, I have that respect. They had me so busy today. I'm tired today, because I was 4 meetings a day average. It's not common for me to get at least 300 emails a day as well. So I'm frantically trying to answer every one of them. But today, and this past week, I told my wife, hey, my Hotmail didn't work. Good. I'm locked out. I don't know what I did, but it must be a good thing. But like I said, we try to attend to certain things. But the one thing that and when you get into some kind of leadership, you tend to not to focus on God sometimes. I got to be here, I got to be here. But one rule I always make is that it doesn't matter. I've been helping other people. Some good friends of mine said, if anything else you want to do, before you meet people, meet with God first. I'm on my patio, but Sholo comes there and Josh were there. I sit on my patio 5 a.m. I don't know if any of you get up that early. But I came from a farmer-rancher lifestyle, so it took a while to get back into it. The last 2 years, it's 5 o'clock. No matter what time I go to bed, I'm up. But I always pray, and I wait for the sun to come up. Lately, it's been not at 5 a.m, because we're changing seasons, but I'm out there listening to the birds. Summertime, you can listen to all the birds, and all of a sudden the birds are away now. So it's crows and magpies right now. But the beautiful sound, like we have a hummingbird that comes in the summer, and I always tell people, don't chase it away. That's God showing us His creation and how beautiful He makes things and creates things. Let's be thankful. We are all connected to this earth, and that's our beliefs. We're all connected to this earth, and everything that we look at and see every day with our eyes, especially once you come to know the Lord, I smell things better. I see things better, right? You sense things, and He just creates all those things where you're aware of His beauty, the beauty that He created. So one scripture I want to read with you is Matthew 5:23-26. Make reconciliation with those that you have issues with. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First, be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Talk about truths, right? There's a lot of sufferings. I know the picture of my I think it's grade 1 or 2. I still have a hard time. I'm the third one from the right, the first row. Big smile. I never lost that smile. Even though going through the life that we had, and the first few years I didn't get to go. I got to go home in the summer times, but a lot of those students that you see in the picture never went home. About 80% of them passed away when they were still young. So they've never. I often think about that. People are asking me, "Is that your drawing?" I don't know. I couldn't spell either. If that was me, I couldn't spell mouse. But I often think about those individuals, and every day I ponder upon the idea of if they were here, how would their children be? If they were here, what would they be doing in Musquatee? What would they be? Would they have success in their lives? And even that one, there's some names there. There's a name I said this morning, Donald Redcalf. I always tell my wife, I always remember that name. It'll never leave my mind. They used to ask him, the teacher would be with a rule, the yardsticks back then. Those of you that are young would probably won't know that, but they used to have yardsticks, and just, if you're looking out the window, you just got smacked in the face or whatever. So they just made you think one way. They'd always ask him, where do you live? And he'd always just point. He didn't know, and I didn't know. I didn't know where the Red Calf family originated from. But one day, like I said, maybe a couple grades after, maybe one grade after, he disappeared. A lot of kids didn't quite make it. And one thing I will share, I know there's a young crowd, but if you need to talk to somebody later, it is important for you to maybe talk to your pastor. Those of you that have backgrounds in psychology or that can deal with mental health, it's always important to check in with somebody. Because in Muscatine, I don't know if you heard about the unmarked graves that have been found across Canada. Ermineskin alone had the biggest school in all of Canada, one of the biggest schools. So the Pope came last year, if you all remember. So if you look at the pictures, I think there's me and the Pope there. Whoop. One more, where the Pope is and I were. There we go. That's the Pope and I. When he came July 25th of last year, he came to Ermineskin, Muscatine, but I was the host. I got a chance to sit beside him, and the hard part of it is that in February I got a text, and they asked me, can I get a high chair so I can sit down while I'm talking to you? Is that possible? Or even just a chair? But they sent me an email and a text saying, can you come to the Seven Sorrows Church at this time and this date, which was 2 days before? And I asked them why. They said, we can't tell you. Oh, why are you being so secretive? But they wouldn't tell me. So the day came, so I told my wife and a few others, come with me. I don't know what this meeting's all about, and it was an afternoon, maybe about 1 o'clock, and I walked in there. The Vatican police, the Vatican representatives, RCMP from headquarters were there, from Ottawa, and whoa, this is serious. Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you. This is serious. So when we sat down, I kind of knew that the Pope had, there's certain calls for the Pope to come to Canada. Thank you. Oh, that's even better. If I fall asleep, it's his fault. But we got to talking, and they started mentioning that, as you all know, the Pope is coming to Canada, and this might be one location that he might attend. So, but we want to look at all the facilities, and have you ever been to Muscatine? In Ermineskin alone, we have some of the best facilities around. And they went to our powwow grounds. It probably can seat about 6,000 people alone in that one ring, but in the main area, and probably about at least can fit more than 10,000 people. So we went around, but it's well fenced off, well guarded. As we were driving around, we went by bus, and I would try and joke. I like joking around, so I joked with the police. They weren't having it. And I thought, oh, geez, serious crowd. So I kind of hung around with them as they were walking and taking pictures and looking at all the access roads and emergency roads that they need to if just in case. So they were talking, this is where the helicopter will fly through. This is where all the security places will be. This will be our checkpoint. People will get dropped off here. And they would whisper. But I'm nosy, so I'd always be nearby. So they came, and I could hear them. And they'd nod their heads. I think this is the spot. This is the place. So I knew in February already, and this is July that we have to look forward to. But I couldn't say anything to anybody. But the word got out a few months later that he was coming, and we already, as leaders, we said, well, our roads they're not good, but it's not because of the Pope coming. we need to fix our roads up. We need to repave some of these areas. So we started doing that this summer. And the officials would come, but by that time there was plainclothes officers walking that section of road. That's about 2 miles every day. And people, why are those guys there? There were, because the people were already, protesters were already hearing that the Pope was going to come to Muscatine. And they're already checking for bombs and everything, right? People trying to sabotage and terrorize the community to avoid him from delivering a message. So every day. And then as we started rebuilding the road, the government showed up one day and they said, oh, we'll take over from here, we'll pay for it. Hey, your money, not mine. But like I said, all these things started to happen and progressively, and I was just thinking, you know what, God, there's something that we have to release to you, that has to be released, and this is part of it. But you know, all those blessings that came in, but on the other side of it too, people were upset. Why did you invite him? I kept telling him, I was forever defending myself. I didn't invite him. He chose this place. Shame on you for bringing them here. Oh man, because as a survivor myself, like it was a hard process, because not just members of Muscatine in my own community, there was people emailing and saying, shame on you guys for bringing them here. You know, all these things. I was under pressure all that time, up until the day. Building the road, they were rebuilding and resurfacing the road, and they made, like today, you just see that, man, thank you for the work, because they rebuilt much of our roads. And we were getting comments from the public saying, well, I don't think that's fair that they get first. That's a blessing from God, the way I look at it. But at the same time, because of the pain, the truths were going to come out. So all that time, even the past chiefs from my own, elders from my own community, I'm not going. Because I'm a pastor, said, your fellow pastor, your fellow whatever, you know, you're the one that believes the same as you, I'm not going to support him. I'm not supporting you. And oh man, I was just, what am I, you know, I just said, we got to follow through. But the one thing I kept in mind is that my friends told me to pass on a story for them. Go and tell our story, right? And that's part of the truth, that what happened. Because Ermineskin, they had ground penetrating radar all over in different communities, if you've heard, right? They were trying to find, unmarked graves. We had that in our community, but they couldn't find anything. But there's a few graves in Ermineskin at the cemetery that don't have names on them, and that's what they're saying. Those are some of the children that never went home. We don't know who they are. I'm sure the records, but the Catholic Church always said, oh, we lost the records. Well, the government was sure good at hiding stuff, right? And that continues today. We talk about truths. They're not telling the truth. I'm not saying to be disrespectful to the government, but they need to acknowledge some wrongs and what they've done in the past. So we talk about all these things. But one thing for sure, in Muscatine, where I went to school, where this building was, where we had all these pictures, Ermineskin had an incinerator. And one person from our church one day, Dr. Willie Littlechild came to speak about because he said, Randy, and he's weak now today, he's frail, but he listened to 7,000 testimonies across Canada and to the Yukon. Do you think that's going to wear on you? Right? You don't have the resources what did we do to check on him as well? I don't think they did. So there's a lot of things that he heard. He always talks about that every once in a while, how some of these stories are. He said that was hard, going through that process, but it needed to be done. So we went through the day of, what was the hardest thing for me when the day we came, if you were watching the footage, and we walked from the cemetery with him. I didn't get to see anybody because we were held, and even they had snipers everywhere. I didn't want to make the wrong move. I didn't want to. So they had, but I had to coach the fellow chiefs, and they kept saying, "Randy, you're so nervous. What do you want us to say?" I said, "You're not talking. We're not even on the agenda. We're just hosts." So there's things that I just constantly had to remind them of, is that we have a responsibility to be the best hosts, because all of the world is looking at us right now. Let's do a good job being good ambassadors, because some things are going to be talked about here. All the people wanted to know and wanted to hear, the survivors, is that 3 words. Guess what they were? I am sorry. That's all they wanted to hear. So as I sat with the Pope was over to my left, man, I had a hard time facing the crowd, because all the survivors, elders, chiefs, they couldn't find seats. Some of them were sitting right in front of us, sitting on the ground. Because everybody else, they were, I guess, a little bit selfish. They didn't look at that. I wanted to have a front row seat to see this, but they forgot about the survivors. And some of them just had to sit down wherever they could on the damp and cold grass, cold ground. And as soon as we sat down, because we came from the back and walked with the Pope as soon as he came from the residential school site and the cemetery to pray for those that have gone on, and he had a chance to. We walked with him, and then when I got to the main area, sat down, and I had if you see the footage, I had a hard time maintaining my composure. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Because as soon as he started talking, people had their heads on someone's shoulder, crying. As soon as he said, "I am sorry," just for many people, man, I didn't know what to do. It was such a great weight, because it reminded me, like, just flashback, just fast forward, rewind, and I started to see. I remember, hey, I'm doing this for Connie Brown. I'm doing this for late Charles Rosen, because they're the ones that came to talk to me. Said, "Randy, I don't think I'm going to live long, but can you go out there and tell our story?" So my mind was rewinding, and I was just seeing them as the young people they were before they passed away. I was just remembering, even the classmates, I was looking at that picture, everything just came, and I just thought, oh man, this is, as hard as it is, it's not about me. It's not about the Pope. It's about everyone that went through the system and of abuse and harms and tormenting in their minds that you'll never get anywhere. They did such a good job with a lot of our people, discouraging them from and saying that you're not a human being and you'll never be part of society. They did a good job doing that. And when we went through the whole process of talking about our story, I did that in 2009. That was hard. Just a cold, dark room in Edmonton at a hotel with the adjudicator and the lawyers that represented us. And I just sat there, and all of a sudden one of the lawyers slipped up. I always think about that. She mentioned a name, and I said, I never said a name. And she had to take me out of the room and said, I'm so sorry. Nothing happened to me, but I knew of this one supervisor that sexually abused young boys. And he was always clean cut, just the best person he could be. I remember at one time I was standing in the food line, because we'd have to go to the residence every lunch hour after the noon hour and stand in your own grades. But he'd always be touching the boys and around, and just, he tried to do that, and I had to purposely just kind of shake it off and move to the back of the line. So every time I would go there, I'd go into the older grades line and stand behind somebody bigger than me, because I was afraid of this guy after that. But they mentioned his name. He's probably still out there. Because during class, there's times when, I got a postcard from such and such a guy, this person. Oh, he's in Frobisher Bay now. And you know what? 40 years later, I didn't realize, 50 years later maybe, this guy's still out there. Is he doing that to somebody else out there? Right? Those are some things that have been just kind of swept under the rug. You say, it never happened. Our Premier of Alberta, former Premier of Alberta, said that this never happened. A lot of people deny I heard and witnessed it myself of how people were treated. So those are some things that, and people often tell us that, oh, just get over it. No way. No way. You think you can get over an argument with your parents or your children, but you can, but some irreparable harms against your people, it's always going to be a memory. It's always going to be painful. There'll be triggers, and a lot of them got triggered when the Pope came, more into addictions. And people always say, oh, you guys help yourselves now, get up from it, get over it. We had an electric fence in Ermineskin. 2 years before I started, they took it down. I often think about that. Man, I was walking around that yard. But in that very same school, we had one of our church members, maybe about 3 years ago, Fran, I think. When Dr. Littlechild came to speak at our church to present this, she just came crying from the back of the church, and like I said, I'm going to be truthful about what she said. She came over just crying. He said, I was at that school, that very same school I started my grade 1 studies, because they tore it down in 1970, 71 maybe. But I went to that school the first couple of years. I remember moving and taking our desks to the new school. Like, there was no moving guys at then, that we were just taking our desks and everything, maybe about a kilometer away in the snow. That's how they treated us. They didn't care how they treated us. But I always remember that. Man, it's heavy. I'm just a tiny little boy, but this is 50, 60 pounds of weight, carrying it in the deep snow. And we were going there, but this lady, she came and she said, I was going to the bathroom. I remember that same going down there. When they poured concrete back then, they didn't care how it settled. It just wavy all the way. But I remember we'd line up to the bathroom, but I always seen this one dark hall, and we were never allowed to go there. But she said, I was going to the bathroom one day, and all of a sudden I turned to the wrong side, and I went into this room, and really, like I said, just be careful what you're hearing today. And she said, I seen the nuns burning babies. Does it shock you? Those are some of the truths, and she's never been the same. She's been so quiet since that time. She was always bubbly and laughing, but that really triggered her at the time. So we don't expect everybody, well, tell me everything that happened. No. If you want to be involved in our community, there's starting points that we all need to get to, right? To get to certain truths. But at the same time, what I always tell people, let's start off where you are. Let's begin where you're at. And let's walk this journey together. And I thank God for where we are today, is that they'll be on a board, and I think there's maybe you can put the other picture. I can't remember the one with the officer, or that one. I was privileged. Aside from meeting the Pope, I got to meet King Charles here in May. They invited me. Said there was an invitation and to go be part of the coronation. And all they just told us, oh, you're not going to even meet him, but you're going to be in a crowd, or you're not even be in a separate building. Well, why are we going? Right? So there's 4 of us that got selected. So we flew to London and got a chance to witness that. So we just soon after all that, it was televised. We sat in the room. Oh, that was fun and boring. That's all I said. So and we went back to our rooms, got pictures at Abbey Road, and with us walking in our headdresses. Oh, right on. At least I got to do that. So and we got back to our room, and everybody said, well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll take off back to the Canadian consulate and meet at 6 o'clock. Okay. I fell asleep. Then, oh no, 7 o'clock, I had to rush. And the one good thing, like I said, about being privileged at that time is that I had an email from the Canadian consulate that I was a special guest, because the security was so tight, they shut down so many roads, access roads. like 2 miles to the consulate, 2 miles to maybe 3 miles to Buckingham Palace. And it said, "You're a special guest." Every time I showed the cab driver, I said, "Here, we can get." "Oh no, we'll never get through." I said, "Here's my email." So every time they showed the security, "Oh, we have a dignitary here," and they let them through. So I always got front door service. People were walking, and I thought, "Oh man, this is nice." But I got there, and some of the chiefs were walking. I said, "Where are you guys going?" I said, "Oh, we're done. But go get a picture of the Prime Minister." And the Prime Minister was there, and I'm not disrespecting him. But I walked in there, and this guy, I don't even know his name. But look, I gave him a treaty medal, a treaty medal from and that's what he's wearing. But he said, "Just the guy I want to see. People know about you, heard about you, they talk about you. Here, let's go somewhere." But and so we talked, and so I explained, and he just shook his head. Then he put out his hand. So that's a gesture. If you ever see the treaty medal, there's two people shaking hands, and there's an axe in there. Or a knife. And there's usually an axe that's put in there, and a treaty to commemorate the treaties, to recognize the treaties, is that when that's there, that means we're going to share the land, and we're going to be good and peaceful partners. Do you think that has happened? No way. There's certain parts of the Indian, I always tell my wife, when the settlers came across Canada, when the First Nations people met them at the shores, oh, who are these people? Think about 1492. There's the papal bull that's been going around for so long, saying that there is no life on this land. Bunch of liars. So we're trying to get them to take that away. So what I always tell people is that they love the land more than the people, right? They didn't look at us. They were just saying, "Oh, look at that opportunity. Oh, I want that." But let's sign treaties to get these guys out of the way, right? So that's the Indian Act did that. If there's times when, like I said, when they used to come and get when we signed treaty, we signed the Peace and Friendship Treaty with the RCMP, the Dominion Peace Police of Canada. They were supposed to be just outside of the reserves to protect us so that we will not be harassed by the whiskey traders, and right? But it hasn't been the same. It hasn't never been like that, really. So we need some repairing to do. And so we talk about that. So one thing that's hard for our people too right now is that it's not that they disrespect authorities, but they have a history. The people that came with the superintendent to take the children away from their homes, they were accompanied by the superintendent and the RCMP, right? Because if you refused to give up your child, you were taken to jail and charged. So there's that trust that between us and the RCMP that has to be built. And I always remind our RCMP detachment, I said, "You guys have some work to do, and we're going to help. We want to help you, but don't be so aggressive with our people. They don't trust you." Because the first thing they do when authorities come into our driveways, what do our people do? Hide. Why? Well, they're triggered by something, right? So a lot of our people hid in a bush and avoided that, and they talk about that, but some people were caught, taken away. My mom was the same way. My brother in 1969 came home, hung himself. Something happened. My 3 older brothers are passed on. My one oldest brother, my one older brother, his name was Jerry, he served as chief of Ermineskin for 16 years. He just passed away in 2014, I believe. I have something there. I have a scar right here. He was a diabetic. He never had a life, because he couldn't go and travel and be places. He was a diabetic, and he had to take what's the term when you have to take 3 times a week? What do you call it? No, not insulin. What's the machine that cleans out? Dialysis. Sorry, I just had to escape my mind today. He was. I had to be on dialysis all the time, but he served our people for so long. So one day they told him, well, you're not going to live long. So my younger brother went for a test and said, I'll give him a kidney. A day before they were going to start authorizing all the procedure, and they said, oh, no, you can't. You're right at the border. We can't go forward. My brother just thought, oh, no, I'm going to die. Guess what happened? I just automatically, I didn't want to lose any of my family members. I'll do it without even consulting my wife and my kids. I was so proud up until that time I announced it to my children. My oldest daughter, which I adopted, and she is so mad. He said, how could you do this? You're the only dad I knew. And what if something happens to me? I said, I didn't even think about that. Right? But we went through it. We talked through it. In 2002, I donated my left kidney to my brother. He had 11 more years to live. He was able to travel to the United States, and that's a blessing. So when I look at my scar, I say, I'm a life giver. And we can do that by offering ourselves to others. I demonstrate that. I say that not all the time. Every once in a while, we just tell people, you know what, I'm proud of what I've done. So I really look after my health. Every 3 months I get blood tests. And Solo knows this. I'm at the weight room just about every day. I have to look after myself, because who's going to have to look after my wife and kids? So I'm at a point where, like I said, today is a last day of leadership, but I thought I'd get away. And all of a sudden they announced yesterday at the meeting, said, oh, you're not getting away so fast. You're going to be a special advisor to 17 other chiefs. So I get to do that after, along with teaching at the universities, and I love it because I'm going to try and finish my PhD here in the next little while. My wife and I are in our leadership studies at Gonzaga University. So that's something I'm venturing out on, so I won't have a life. But like I said, we always say that in education, you get out of it when you quit learning. I haven't. Because I'm the only one in my family. The government did such a good job of discouraging my siblings that they'll never get anywhere. Not just my siblings, but across Muscogee. You'll never be anything. You'll never get anywhere. Well, 3 degrees later, who's saying, right? I'm happy with my life. I've been successful. I played professional hockey for St. Louis Blues and New Jersey Devils farm team back in 1983. I was able to get past that. Sports saved my life, and education. I had a grade 5 teacher. I don't want to mention her name, but she was I tried to avoid her one time, and I said, I want to go to school there. But she taught me a lot. She disciplined me so well. And you know that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I think it was a Jeopardy, one of those shows where there was one question there that said, how far is the sun from the earth? That just stuck with me all these years. 94 million miles away. I knew that answer when it was on TV. I thought, I know that answer from grade 5. I could have been that millionaire. All right? But you just remember certain events in your life and just kind of say, maybe it was bad, maybe it was good, but man, I survived it. I lived through it. And today I can tell about it because I was given a Cree name when I became chief, the head transfer. My headdress, that feathers are over 100 years old. They're my great-great-grandfather's feathers. Man, I hold them with pride and just when I wear it, I thought, somebody wore this headdress before me. Somebody greater than I am, because he signed treaties. And so some of the treaties talk about, well, you'll provide an education in exchange for the land we're going to share with you. You'll look after our education, you'll look after our health. That's what's in there. Think about that. 1876. Our people didn't go to post-secondary, our chiefs, but they had the foresight to see, Well, maybe there will be hardships for them in the future, but let's secure some things for them. And people say, oh, you get everything for free. No way. People have to die and suffer. The land that you're living on right now, I'll say that to people. We're all treaty people because your ancestors came onto this land because of treaty. And the Métis came after because, the Métis came later. The First Nations were then settled on those treaties. And that's something that I always tell people, is that it's important to recognize that. So, so important. So I'm privileged, like I said, the Cree name that the first one they said, they said, you have a choice. They said, we have one name. And he said, in honor of my great-grandfather, because you're going to get his feathers, you're going to get his headdress, the transfer ceremony. He said, the name we have for you, I'm his grandson. Man, that just brought pride to me. And the day before our inauguration was November 11th. Then they said, oh, we went into a ceremony again, but we were told that we were given another name. Now you choose. I can't say it's ironic because of my belief. Guess what it is? Wawasenam means he who throws the light. My grandfather on my mom's side, his name was Wases, means light. But for me, with the journey I'm on, telling the story, Wawasenam, it's fitting. He who throws light, I'm putting light on a situation, revealing certain things, not just about residential school, but a lot of things. Like I said, I have influence with the national chief and now a little bit in England, right? God is good. God will watch over us. As much as like I said, I have to share some of these painful things, but those are truths. So where do we need to our people say, well, you need to reconcile. What did we do, right? Who are we reconciling with? We're the ones that we're told these individuals want us to forgive them. That's hard for them. But it's necessary, right, for all of us to get to that point of truth-telling, reconciling. But one day, where's our goal? Is I want to get to heaven. How do we get there? Well, it means some discipline in our lives, and understanding who God is in our lives. So, I'm just, I want you to read some of those things in the TRC calls to action. But another scripture I said in Philippians 1:9-10 says, this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in the knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. So we have some misconceptions. Like I always tell people, there's two types of ignorance, ones that don't know and some that just don't care to know. I was at the Alberta Rural Municipalities Convention in Edmonton at the Shaw. I was the main speaker. I was on a panel. Half the crowd didn't care. But I said, oh, it's okay with you guys. I'm still going to tell my story. You invited me here, so you're going to hear it. But I wasn't doing it in an ignorant way. I just said, let's get uncomfortable for a while, right? Let's talk about these things. So in closing, like I said, I have some things. There's 10 principles that we have to live by. The harms and the impacts of residential school, government policy. Indian Act came over. After they signed treaty, so think about this. A treaty is about land. Indian Act came after, but they all rewrote it that they would just try to suppress us, oppress us. There's points in our lives in the 1930s where we couldn't even, if we were seen in public, say, I came from Muscatine, came here in town. If I was seen on the streets, our people were taken to jail. You can't be in public. That's what the Indian Act did. Section 51, if you ever read it in the Indian Act, it says in there that we're not sound in our minds. We helped you survive on this land. When they came across the shores, they showed them how to live. how to set up camp, how to hunt. That's what our people say. Well, if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be here. Your ancestors wouldn't have survived. And a lot of people deny that. Oh, we knew everything. I remember there's a section of land by my place. There's a big lake there, and the elders I used to ride my horse there, and I know where exactly that place. And they were saying, there's a time when our people were there and watching the redcoats. Said they were just dirty and skinny, and they said, we could kill these guys if we want to, but we're gonna help them. That's not recorded, but those are stories we hear about, and those are some things that I listen to, these stories and traditions that our people carry. There's a lot of truth to that, and we need to get to a place where let's begin a conversation where you and I will understand each other so we could go hand in hand into the future. Right? So that's so vital for us. So in closing, I want to share this last scripture. It says, Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, "Come now, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool." Come, let us reason together. Our hands, many of our people are willing to share and talk to you about these things. But when you come to our community, don't fear. The moment they begin to trust you, they'll start to open up to you, and they'll even invite you to stay longer. There's times when I go visit people, our elders in our community. Oh, come and have a cup of tea. And they say, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. They'll bring this big container. Man. So the conversation just goes. And I love hearing our language because I'm a fluent Cree speaker. And they just share their hearts. And when I come away, and I always tell my wife, man, I came there, I went there to encourage them, but they encouraged me. I go to the hospitals and talk to our people that have dementia. They talk about things that, whatever, right? I just go along with their story. Oh, that's good. But that's my ministry. I go to the hospitals and visit people. I get to do that once I'm done my role. But it's, like I said, it's been certainly a pleasure to share this with you, and I thank God for each and every one of you, and I know that you want to be involved in our community. Sholo, Deneen, and Josh, they've already begun that process. They're so well appreciated in our community. And I often speak at the schools, and I know they want me to teach at the university because I teach on treaties and governance and the histories at the universities, and people just love them. I demonstrated to the classmates and made how to make your own bow. I made my own bow. So don't tease me, I might catch you. But I, like I said, it's just these things that we've learned that we're going back to. Like last year, I had a little bit of a scare in my life where my sugar was 6.7. I went there for a flu, and they said, oh, aren't you on any medicine? I said, for what? Oh, you should be on metformin. Oh man, that scared me. Remember? I have one kidney. I pretty well only have one chance. But I said, I'm not accepting that. Tell me what I need to do. I lost 15 pounds. My numbers are 5.9, no medicine. See, like I said, God will help us. God will help you to be involved in our community, but be genuine about what you want to do. Don't just come there and say, I can fix you guys. Well, don't come. Be genuine about what you want to do. But first learn about the history. Let's learn about the history of the communities, wherever you're from, and because once you understand that, you'll know how to approach things. And you're going to ask questions, you're going to learn those things. But thank you once again. I'm grateful, and I hope that it encouraged you, and I'll be back to come and speak to you sometime again. Hi.